Let's talk about this story. Former RBC employee looked up the personal banking information of Prime Minister Mark Carney, also looked up the banking information of Justin Trudeau. Now, yesterday we told you, because the initial reporting had that this person had looked up Carney and Justin Trudeau, former Prime Minister Trudeau. As it turns out, they actually looked up Justin Trudeau. There's someone who has Justin Trudeau's name. And so they apparently looked up the wrong Justin Trudeau, but no less, they were trying to look up the former prime minister. An affidavit suggests it was part of an organized crime scheme. 23-year-old Ibrahim El Hakim charged with fraud over $5,000, unauthorized use of a computer, identity theft, and tracking in identity information. Let's take a look at this with Sam Cooper. He's an investigative journalist and organized crime expert and founder of TheBureau.news. Sam, welcome back to the program.
Great to be back with you.
Well, your reaction when you heard this story, when it broke yesterday, that an RBC employee had been arrested, what went through your mind immediately?
Well, automatically, I think shocked but not surprised, Elias. I've looked at similar cases with allegations that I've reported on cases of the RCMP former intelligence boss, Carmen Ortiz, allegedly sending information to Mexican cartel actors, Middle Eastern terror network and money launderers, allegedly Chinese threat networks. I've reported on a Canada Border Services Agency former employee and whistleblower that believes Mexican and Middle Eastern networks had penetrated our Border Services Agency. I'm aware of more cases that I'm still working on, shocking stuff. But as I say, it's not surprising that Canadian banks are penetrated. And very briefly, my concern as an investigator would be that a foreign organized crime network is seeking to get financial information on our current and former prime minister, with the potential that they were tasked to give that information to foreign threat actors or organized criminals who could potentially leverage or attempt. Look, let's come out and say it. It looks like they would try to leverage Canada's senior leaders with personal financial information, which is very scary. But as I say, Canadians should be aware that this threat, I believe, is broad and active in Canada.
I've seen reporting on this one about this 23-year-old Ibrahim El Hakim, that he was approached on Telegram in order to take part of the scheme. He was basically paid $500 a head for every single for an account that he accessed, and then gave the information. He was given $500 for it. But I just, and you bring up some of the things that this could be used for. How high and low does this go? I'm just like when I think about how organized crime is using this, you mentioned one scenario here, but just how many people are being targeted? I mean, I'm thinking if Prime Minister's going to get targeted, well, then who else is also in the crosshairs?
That's the right question, and that brings up the other potential scheme here. The affidavit reportedly said that this young individual was allegedly creating fraudulent lending schemes based on borrower profiles. And so imagine the possibilities that not only prime ministers, it could be not seeking leverage, but seeking to use their profile for false loans. That's incredibly scary, and that could extend to everyday Canadians. We don't know yet. This is pure speculation, but what if more Canadians had their personal profiles accessed to draft fake loans? And I can tell you, I reported an explosive story based on an HSBC Canada whistleblower that came forward to me. This was a big story for the Bureau, and proven that Chinese fake mortgages were being created broadly in Toronto to give out massive fraudulent loans based on fake companies in China, where people were claiming that they were working remotely in, for example, Beijing, while living in Markham, Ontario during the pandemic, claiming incomes of upwards of $500,000. So you can imagine what kind of home loan you can get based off that fraudulent loan. And that just, it sort of rings a bell with me to what could be going on in this case. And so you're right, this could go very high and it could go very broad and deep. And at the end of the day, Canada's financial integrity, I don't think anyone could argue. There could be big concerns here.
We're with Sam Cooper, wrapping up with Sam. He's from TheBureau.news. We're talking about this RBC employee that's been arrested for accessing the banking information of Prime Minister Mark Carney. I have to ask, on the RBC side of things, are they doing enough? Like, one of the thoughts that goes through my mind is, like, how are there not mechanisms in place that would stop a 23-year-old employee from accessing Mark Carney's details? A Justin Trudeau. It's not the Justin Trudeau, but a Justin Trudeau. Like, shouldn't there be mechanisms in place? Do you know if there's any failures happening in our Canadian banking system for years and decades? We've been very laudatory of it, and I think with good reason. You compare it to a lot of other places in the world. What about that side of things? Are the banks doing enough?
Well, broadly speaking, as you know, this is a very current topic that Washington and President Donald Trump have deep concerns that Canada isn't doing enough to crack down on transnational organized crime, fentanyl, money laundering. And I can tell you that it's a live concern that the Toronto Dominion Bank case, as you know, it took U.S. investigators to uncover money laundering for fentanyl related to Chinese organized crime down in New York and New Jersey. I reported for the Bureau that my U.S. Investigative sources said that case, not only reflective of Toronto Dominion, of course, being headquartered in Toronto and not taking adequate corporate steps to look at suspicious transactions, but I was told that the believed directors of this Chinese money laundering scheme are acting from Toronto and targeting U.S. banks. So in a nutshell, my answer is, it's not just RBC with a bad headline for them in this case. Canada's banking system is in the sights of the U.S. government for not having adequate controls in place against organized crime.
Sam, we have to leave it there. I want to thank you so much for coming on this morning.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Sam Cooper, investigative journalist, and he's the founder of TheBureau.news, if you want to read his reporting.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years.
And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.